Hello, and welcome along to the next in the series of videos that is talking about the Chocolatey Quick Deployment Environment, QDE, and how we can set that up. So in this video, I wanted to carry on from where we left off in the last video, which was we've now got pretty much everything set up. We've got a Nexus repositories up and running. We've got configured and set up Jenkins to at least be accessible. We have performed a client installation on a machine so that we now have two machines reporting into CCM. We've got both the Chocolatey server itself and a live streams machine, which is another machine that I've got available on my network here. And then now what I want to be able to do is I want to look at using some of the automation around Jenkins so that we can keep our internal repository up to date. So let's go ahead and look at Jenkins. So by default, all of these three jobs that we have available in Jenkins are all disabled. So let's just go ahead and enable all of these jobs. Let's go back to the home page and I'll click on Update Production Repository and I'll enable that one. And then finally, let's go ahead and enable this one. So the first of these jobs is entitled Internalize Packages from the Community Repository. So what that's going to do is that currently we have a Chocolatey test repository, which doesn't have anything in it. And then we have a Chocolatey internal repository that has a number of packages that we've already, us in terms of Chocolatey, have already downloaded, internalized, and made available to you to consume straight away. So one of the ones that's missing here, one of the tools that I always like to use is a utility tool called Windirstat. Very, very simple utility, but what I want to do is I want to have that available in my internal repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this internalize packages from the community repository. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this job. So I'm going to build it with parameters. So what it's going to do is it wants me to provide a semicolon separated list of packages that I want to be internalized. So I'm just going to do one at the minute. So I'm going to do Windirstat, and it's come up by default the Chocolatey test repository, and that's where it's going to push the packages to. So what our recommendation is that as you're consuming and using packages, you are not going to want to put them directly onto production. You're going to want to put them into the test repository, and that's why we created it, so you can test them in isolation before making them available to everyone in your organization. Now, one thing I will have to do is that this default API key was changed. Now we changed that and we created a new one. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to reset it one more time so that I know what that key is. So I'm going to go into my admin and I'm going to go to NuGet API key and I'm going to say reset API key, and I'm going to log in with my password. And I'm going to grab this again. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put it into, I'm going to change it here. And I'm going to go and say build. And I'm going to put that password over here because I'm probably going to need it later. So I'm going to go ahead and build this. So once that's building, we'll see in Jenkins that it starts a pending job, and we should be able to go back and look at how that build went. So down here, I can look at the console output and I can see what's happening. So we can see here what's happening is that it's reaching out to the community repository and it's looking for a Windirstat package. So it's found one. It's then running Package Internalizer. So Package Internalizer is one of the Chocolatey for Business applications. And what it does is it takes any community package and it's going to look to see what URLs it's downloading, and it's going to download those and repackage that up as a self-contained package that no longer needs to reach out to the internet. So this was successful. And if we go back over here and look at our sources again, then what we should have now on our test repository is that Windirstat package. So that package is now available on that feed. Okay, now we would then want to do our due diligence. We would want to make sure that this package actually installs the way we expect it to before we would promote it into our production environment. So our production environment is this Chocolatey internal feed. So as a result of running that one job, it hasn't put the package onto the internal feed here. because we didn't tell it to. So what we should do is we should test it somehow. So but that really comes down to how you as an organization want to test those packages. For now, I'm going to say that package does exactly what I want it to do. Okay. What I'm going to do is I am going to run this task. Now this task seems to have already run, so let's just check to see what's going on here. I know why that didn't run. That run with the same problem. So the way that this Jenkins is set up is that if I run this one, it will immediately run the update production repository. Now that's just the way that it's configured. It's not necessarily the way that you might want it to be, but that again is fully configurable as you want to do it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the default passwords, and that's because I didn't do that everywhere I needed to do it. So I'm going to say that my password is this. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to say save. And I'm going to do that for each of the jobs because they will need to have the API key in order to work correctly. So I'm going to take this out, I'm going to put it in, I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to do the same on the final one, configure. I'm going to change this API key as well. I'm going to hit save. So now I'm going to run this update production repository. Now, normally what would happen if we actually look at this, if you were to actually look at the scripts associated with this job, so what we do is we run a script. So in here, what we leave for the user to do is to do a test. Now, the test would be to actually test the package. We leave that for you to do as the user. The default scripts don't do that. But if I go ahead and do this one, and I say build with parameters, what this one is going to do is it's going to look at any packages that exist on my Chocolatey test repository, and it's going to push it if they don't exist in the Chocolatey internal repository. So if I go ahead and build this one, now that I've added in the right API key, what should happen is that it will enumerate all the packages on my Chocolatey test, and if they don't exist on Chocolatey internal, it will push them up there. So let's see what this does. Hopefully this, if we look at the console output, we should see this happening. Yeah, so it identified that the Windirstat package exists on the Chocolatey test repository, but not on the internal. So now if I go over here and refresh this and look at Chocolatey internal and scroll down, we'll see that Windirstat is indeed there where it wasn't before. So it's taken it from test and put it into my production repository. So now over here on my client machine that I had before, if I go ahead and clear this, I should be able to do choco install Windirstat. So that will look at default the Chocolatey internal repository, and it will grab that package from there. It's not going to reach out to the internet for any application installers because all of that was internalized and put onto my internal feed. So that setup.exe comes from our Nexus repository. Okay, now the final one that we want to do, and this is the one that you would want to use sparingly, or not so much sparingly. This is the one that you need to be careful with, and this is the one that you really want to make sure that you don't push to production straight away. So what this one is going to do is this one is going to look at all of the packages that exist in my test repository and check to see if there are any updates. So as of right now, I don't have any packages in my test repository that don't exist or are out of date on my compared to the community repository is what I'm trying to say. So if I go ahead and build this and I look at the console output, what we'll see it do is it will look at all the packages in Chocolatey test and it will check to see if there are any newer versions in community repository. And as of right now, there aren't. So let's go ahead and try and fake a situation. So if I go to chocolatey.org and which packages do I not have installed already? So VLC is there. What would be a good one to do that? Has it got Notepad++? It does. Try to remember what packages I could do here. What would be a good one to do? Has it got Procmon? It doesn't. Okay, so let's use that one. So let's go find packages, and we'll say that we understand, and we'll do ID Procmon. So process monitor here. So what I want to do is I want to download an old version of the package. So if we look at version history here, and let's say we download the 3.5.0 version, I'm going to download that one, and I'm going to take this package and I'm going to put it into my test repository. And I'm going to do that by doing choco push C users administrator downloads procmon to source, which is going to be the source of my test repository, which is this one. I'm going to go to the settings for that. And I'm going to go to choco test, and that will give me the URL. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to say source, and I'm going to say dash dash, which can just do K, and I'm going to take that API key, which was this one, and I'm going to paste that into there. So that should allow me to take that NuGet package and push it into my test repository. So if I go back over here or look at browse, then within my test repository, I have Procmon, but I know that I've got an old version of Procmon. So what I can do by running this script again, let's go back to here and say update test repository from the community repository. I can go ahead and build with parameters, and it's going to use the same parameters as before. I'm going to click build. And if we look at the build output from here, we should see that it's checking for, that's now got two packages. It's getting report package for Procmon, and it knows that there's a newer version. So here we can see it downloading the 3.5.3 version. It's downloading and it's internalizing it, and it's going to push it to the Chocolatey test environment. So success. So if we go back over here and we refresh this page, we should see that Procmon now has two versions, 3.5.0 and 3.5.3. Okay, so in theory, you could schedule this job to run on a cycle. You could have it run every day, every week, every whatever. And what it's going to do is it's going to download and it's going to install those packages onto my test repository. But notice here as well, it did do that other thing, which is to update the production repository as well. So what it's then going to do is it's going to run, it just ran the update the production repository. So if we look at browse and we look at Choco internal, we should now see that we've now got Procmon here, and it's taken the latest one and put it into there. Okay, so it took the latest one. So by default, these jobs are going to run in such a way that it does put things into the test repository, but there's no intermediate step. There's nothing to stop it pushing directly to the production repository. So there's a little bit of tinkering that you might want to do to set it up so that it doesn't do that final step until you've done some internal testing. But if you look at the documentation on the chocolatey.org website, we walk you through suggestions on how to do that. But the out-of-the-box suggestion allows you to quite easily, one, download a new package that you want to internalize into the test repository and then into the production repository, and then also to keep your test repository up to date with what is available on chocolatey.org. So we like to think that it's a very, very simple way to enable your internal environments to have the most recent versions available for installation. So to finish that off, if I go back over here and I do choco install procmon, what we'll see is, again, it will reach out to our Nexus repository. It will say, do you want to install? Yes, we do. And from there, again, it's not going out to the internet. It's using that internalized version that's got all the bits in it that we need, and it will be available to all of the client machines that you want to use it. So hopefully this has been useful. It's a very, very brief overview of the Jenkins setup. There's lots more that you could do in here, but again, we've given you the bare minimum to get started. Thank you very much.